Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagwawatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, The Son of Drona Punished. We're taking up at text number 1. Shonaka Uvacha Nirgate Narade Sutta Bhagavan Badarayana Shrutabams Tad Abhipretam Tata Kim Akarod Vibhu. Shaunaka, Sri Shaunaka Uvacha said, Nirgate, having gone, Narade, Narada Muni, Sutta, O Sutta, Bhagavan, the transcendently powerful, Badarayanaha, Veda Vyasa, Shrutavan, who heard, Tat, his, Abhipretam, desire of the mind. Tata, thereafter, Kim, what? Akarot, did he do, Vibhu, the great. Rishi Shaunaka asked, Rishi Shaunaka asked, O Sutta, the great and transcendently powerful Vyasadeva heard everything from Sri Narada Muni. So after Narada's departure, what did Vyasadeva do? Oh, say it, please repeat. Rishi Shaunaka asked, O Sutta, the great and transcendently powerful Vyasadeva heard everything from Sri Narada Muni. So after Narada's departure, what did Vyasadeva do? Purport. In this chapter, the clue for describing Srimad Bhagwatam is picked up as Maharaj Parikshit is miraculously saved in the womb of his mother. This was caused by Droni Ashvatthama, Acharya Drona's son, who killed the 5 sons of Draupadi while they were asleep, for which he was punished by Arjuna. Before commencing the great epic Srimad Bhagwatam, Sri Vyasadeva realized the whole truth by trance in devotion. Text number 2, Sutta Uvacha. Brahma Nadyam Saraswatyam Ashrama Paschime Tate Shamya Prasa iti Prokta Rishinam Satra Vardhanaha. Sutta, Sri Sutta, Uvacha, said, Brahma Nadyam, on the bank of the river immediately related with the Vedas, Brahmanas, saints, and the Lord, Saraswatyam, Saraswati, Ashrama, cottage for meditation, Paschime, on the west, Tate, bank, Shamyaprasa, the place named Shamyaprasa, iti, thus, Prokta, said to be, Rishinam, of the sages, Satra Vardhanaha, that which enlivens activities. Translation, Sri Sutta said, we can say it all together. Sri Sutta said, on the western bank of the river Saraswati, which is immediately related with the Vedas, there is a cottage for meditation at Shamya Prasa, which enlivens the transcendental activities of the sages. Purport. For spiritual advancement of knowledge, a suitable place and atmosphere are definitely required. The place on the western bank of the Saraswati is especially suitable for this purpose, and there is the ashrama of Vyasadeva at Shamyaprasa. Srila Vyasadeva was a householder, yet his residential place is called an ashrama. An ashrama is a place where spiritual culture is always foremost. It does not matter whether the place belongs to a householder or a mendicant. The whole varnashrama system is so designed that each and every status of life is called an ashrama. This means that spiritual culture is the common factor for all. The brahmacharis, the grihastas, the vanaprasthas, and the sannyasis all belong to the same mission of life, namely realization of the Supreme. Therefore, none of them are less important as far as spiritual culture is concerned. The difference is a matter of formality on the strength of renunciation. The sannyasis are held in high esteem on the strength of practical renunciation. Text number 3. Tasmin swa ashrame vyaso Badari Shandamandite Asino pa upashrishya Pranidadyao manakswayam Tasmin, in that ashrama, sway, own, ashrame, in the cottage, Vyasa, Vyasadeva, Badari, berry, Shanda, trees, Mandite, surrounded by, Asina, sitting, Apa upashrishya, touching water. Apa upa prishya. Touching water. Prani dadyao. Concentrated. Manak. The mind. Swayam. Himself. In that place, Srila Vyasadeva, in his own ashrama, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. Altogether. In that place, Srila Vyasadeva, in his own ashrama, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. Purport: under instructions of his spiritual master, Srila Narada Muni, Vyasadeva concentrated his mind in that transcendental place of meditation. Text number 4. Bhakti yogena manasi Samyak pranihite male Apashyat purusham purnam Mayam chatat apashrayam. Bhakti, devotional service. Yogena, by the process of linking up. Manasi, upon the mind. Samyak, perfectly. Pranihite, engaged in and fixed upon. Amale, without any matter. Apashyat, saw. Purusham, the personality of Godhead. Purnam, absolute. Mayam, energy. Cha, also. Tat, his. Apashrayam, under full control. Together. Thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service, bhakti yoga, without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. Are you ready for the purport? Okay, one person. All right, okay. Perfect vision of the absolute truth is possible only by the linking process of devotional service. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. One can perfectly realize the absolute truth personality of Godhead only by the process of devotional service. And one can enter into the kingdom of God by such perfect knowledge. Imperfect realization of the absolute by the partial approach of the impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma does not permit anyone to enter into the kingdom of God. Sri Narada advised Srila Vyasadeva to become absorbed in transcendental meditation on the personality of Godhead and his activities. Srila Vyasadeva did not take notice of the effulgence of Brahman because that is not absolute vision. The absolute vision is the personality of Godhead, as it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Vasudeva Sarvamiti. In the Upanishads also it is confirmed that Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, is covered by the golden glowing Hiranmayena Patrena veil of impersonal Brahman. And when that curtain is removed by the mercy of the Lord, the real face of the Absolute is seen. The Absolute is mentioned here as the Purusha, or person. The absolute personality of Godhead is mentioned in so many Vedic literatures, and in the Bhagavad Gita, the Purusha is confirmed as the eternal and original person. The absolute personality of Godhead is the perfect person. The Supreme Person has manifold energies, out of which the internal, external, and marginal energies are specifically important. The energy mentioned here is the external energy, as will be clear from the statements of her activities. The internal energy is there along with the absolute person, as the moonlight is there with the moon. The external energy is compared to darkness because it keeps the living entities in the darkness of ignorance. The word apashrayam suggests that this energy of the Lord is under full control. The internal potency or superior energy is also called Maya, but it is spiritual Maya, or energy exhibited in the absolute realm. When one is under the shelter of this internal potency, the darkness of material ignorance is at once dissipated. And even those who are Atmarama, or fixed in trance, take shelter of this Maya, or internal energy. Devotional service or bhakti yoga is the function of the internal energy. Thus, there is no place for the inferior energy or material energy, just as there is no place for darkness in the effulgence of spiritual light. Such internal energy is even superior to the spiritual bliss attainable in the conception of impersonal Brahman. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the impersonal Brahman effulgence is also an emanation from the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The Paramapurusha cannot be anyone except Sri Krishna himself, as will be explained in the later shlokas. Text number 5. Yaya samohito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam paropi manute nartam tatkritam chabipadyate. Yaya, by whom? Samohitaha, illusioned. Jiva, the living entities. Atmanam, self. Triguna atmakam, conditioned by the three modes of nature, or a product of matter. Para, transcendental. Api, in spite of. Manute, takes it for granted. Anartam, things not wanted. Tat, by that. Kritam cha, reaction. Abhipadyate, undergoes thereof. Translation together. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. Ready for the purport? Yes. Okay, fantastic. The root cause of suffering by the materialistic living beings is pointed out with remedial measures, which are to be undertaken, and also the ultimate perfection to be gained. All this is mentioned in this particular verse. The living being is by constitution transcendental to material engagement, but he is now imprisoned by the external energy, and therefore he thinks himself one of the material products. And due to this unholy contact, the pure spiritual entity suffers material miseries under the modes of material nature. The living entity misunderstands himself to be a material product. This means that the present perverted way of thinking, feeling, and willing under material conditions is not natural for him, but he has his normal way of thinking, feeling, and willing. The living being in his original state is not without thinking, willing, and feeling power. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the actual knowledge of the conditioned soul is now covered by nescience. Thus, the theory that a living being is absolute, impersonal Brahman is refuted herein. This cannot be, because the living entity has his own way of thinking in his original unconditional state also. The present conditional state is due to the influence of the external energy, which means that the illusory energy takes the initiative while the Supreme Lord is aloof. The Lord does not desire that a living being be illusioned by external energy. The external energy is aware of this fact, but still she accepts a thankless task of keeping the forgotten soul under illusion by her bewildering influence. The Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusory energy because such performances of the illusory energy are also necessary for reformation of the conditioned soul. An affectionate father does not like his children to be chastised by another agent, yet he puts his disobedient children under the custody of a severe man just to bring them to order. But the all-affectionate Almighty Father at the same time desires relief for the conditioned soul, relief from the clutches of the illusory energy. The king puts the disobedient citizens within the walls of the jail, but sometimes the king, desiring the prisoner's relief, personally goes there and pleads for reformation. And on his doing so, the prisoners are set free. Similarly, the Supreme Lord descends from his kingdom upon the kingdom of the illusory energy and personally gives relief in the form of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein he personally suggests that although the ways of the illusory energy are very stiff to overcome, one who surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. This surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering ways of the illusory energy. The surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. The surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. The Lord has suggested, therefore, that by the influence of the speeches of saintly persons who have actually realized the Supreme, men are engaged in his transcendental loving service. The conditioned soul gets a taste for hearing about the Lord, and by such hearing only, he is gradually elevated to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment for the Lord. The whole thing is completed by the surrendering process. Herein also, the same suggestion is made by the Lord in his incarnation of Vyasadeva. This means that the conditioned souls are being reclaimed by the Lord both ways, namely by the process of punishment, by the external energy of the Lord, and by himself as the spiritual master within and without. Within the heart of every living being, the Lord himself as the Supersoul Paramatma becomes the spiritual master. And from without, he becomes the spiritual master in the shape of scriptures, saints, and initiator spiritual master, and the initiator spiritual master. This is still more explicitly explained in the next shloka. Personal superintendence of the illusory energy is confirmed in the Vedas, the Kenu Upanishad, in relation to the demigod's controlling power. Herein also it is clearly stated that the living entity is controlled by the external energy in a personal capacity. The living being thus subject to the control of the external energy is differently situated. It is clear, however, from the present statement of the Bhagwawatam that the same external energy is situated in the inferior position before the Supreme Personality of Godhead or the perfect being. The perfect being, or the Lord, cannot be approached even by the illusory energy, who can only work on the living entities. Therefore, it is sheer imagination that the Supreme Lord is illusioned by the illusory energy and thus becomes a living being. If the living being and the Lord were in the same category, then it would have been quite possible for Vyasadeva to see it. And there would have been no question of material distress on the part of the illusion being, for the Supreme Being is fully cognizant. So there are so many unscrupulous imaginations on the part of the monist to endeavor to put both the Lord and the living being in the same category. Had the Lord and the living being been the same, then Srila Shukadev Goswami would not have taken the trouble to describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, for they would all be manifestations of the illusory energy. Srimad Bhagwawatam is the summum bonum remedy for suffering humanity in the clutches of Maya. Srila Vyasadeva therefore first of all diagnosed the actual disease of the conditioned souls, that is, their being illusioned by the external energy. He also saw the perfect Supreme Being from whom the illusory energy is far removed. Though he saw both the diseased conditioned souls and also the cause of the disease, and the remedial measures are suggested in the next verse. Both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living beings are undoubtedly qualitatively one, but the Lord is the controller of the illusory energy, whereas the living entity is controlled by the illusory energy. Thus the Lord and the living beings are simultaneously one and different. Another point is distinct herein, that eternal relation between the Lord and the living being is transcendental. Otherwise, the Lord would not have taken the trouble to reclaim the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. In the same way, the living entity is also required to revive his natural love and affection for the Lord. And that is the highest perfection of the living entity. Srimad Bhagwawatam treats the conditioned soul with an aim to that goal of life. Now I'll take a few reflections or questions.
Control. But we also read that the Lord doesn't want the living entities to be delusioned, but the illusory energy against his will, if I remember the words correctly, still does it. So if the energy is under Lord's control, then how and why is it able to?
What it was saying, what Prabhupada was saying there was, it's not Krishna's wish that the jiva be under the control of the illusory energy, which he gave the analogy of, about which he gave the analogy that sometimes a parent wishing to reform a child will put the child under the care of a severe person. Like you're going to military school and there's some intense tapasya. And so in the same way, it's not the parent's desire that the son go there, but he does it against his will. With the idea that the child will be reformed and come back to his loving relationship. So it's the same way with Krishna. It's not his desire that living entities come into the control of the illusory energy. But he provides that for the wayward souls who wish that, and also fulfilling their desire to be separate, he simultaneously helps to reform them by arranging a circumstance where they will be able to see for themselves that it's not in their best interest. They have to come to that by their own realization. Prabhupada mentioned his son once was trying to climb up on a table and touch the spinning fan, table fan. And Prabhupada kept telling him to get down. And one of Prabhupada's friends was there and said, no, just turn it down a little and let him touch it and see for himself. So he did that. And then he became aware that then in the analogy, Prabhupada's allowing to use his free will. He's irascible, so he lets him do it, and then he gets his own realization. So he gave that as analogous to the Lord letting us touch the material energy. We're in a question and reflection stage right now. Yes?
Personal superintendence of the illusionary energy is confirmed in the Vedas in relation to the demigod's control and power. What does that mean?
It's just like in a prison, you have prison guards. they're under the government, but they're doing the work of holding the prisoners to their tasks. They're breaking bricks, sleeping in their cell, and so forth. So the demigods have that jurisdiction in the material world. That's their relationship with living entities. They're described as being devotees, but they have some material desires. That is the demigods. But they're given that relationship to control the various aspects of the material nature on behalf of the Lord, or in a general sense, but more specifically to control the material nature for the reformation of the living beings.
We were talking in the Srimad Bhagwawatam class just this morning about something about institutionalization, that power and to do something good. And you said demigods are devotees but with material desires. So in the case of Govardhan Leela, that Indra was wreaking havoc on Vrindavan residents, he wasn't trying to do good. Like, he was trying to take like his power for something good, like something for his own self gratification, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then Krishna reforms them too as well.
Yeah. They're also there's also some conditioning of the demigods, and see in the case of Indra, he sometimes becomes influenced by his own power. Even that can happen to Brahma. It's dangerous to have power, especially as a jiva. So it's important whenever we are delegated power to remember that we're using it only at the pleasure of Krishna, and the moment we try to touch it, we can become overwhelmed by it. Similarly, demigods become overwhelmed at a certain point. They're given a lot of power. Like Yamaraj is practically omniscient. Has to be to understand the psychic movements of the living beings. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Yes,
I just have a reflection.
please.
It's from the last purport that we read. This surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering ways of the illusory entity. And the line that you repeated as well. The surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. And what struck me was that this surrendering process is the remedial measure. So it's not this surrender is the remedial measure, but the process. And you always say that we should just keep doing the practicing and not expect things to just happen every night or when we want it to happen.
It's an important distinction. And very specifically, surrender, of course that's an English word. We have Sharanagati in the terminology of the Bhagavat, which is described as a sixfold process. First is accepting things that are favorable. Second is rejecting things that are unfavorable. Third is to consider the Lord one's maintainer. Fourth is to consider the Lord one's protector. Fifth is to always be very humble. And the sixth is to consider that everything that one has, including oneself, belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes?
There's a question online. It says, what are your recommendations for devotees to systematically hear your lectures?
I have no such recommendations. according to one's taste. Anything else? Welcome, everybody. We're in here just reading Bhagavatam. Apparently nobody can stop us. Okay, I'm going to, yes, please.
I just wanted to know, why does the realization take so long to come? That
What do you consider long?
I mean, if you touch the stove once and you get burnt, then you know, okay, I'm not going to touch it again. But with material energy, you get kicked so many times. But even then, the realization takes so long to come that this is not the place for me. I need to direct my energies towards.
That's very true. Now, first of all, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in describing this phenomenon to Sanatana Goswami, says, Maya Bugda Jivera Nahi Swata Krishna Gyan, Kripaya Koila Krishna Veda Puran. He says that it's not swata or automatic, that the living being comes out of bewilderment by the material nature. There has to be an intervention. And that's why Srila Vyasadeva gives the Vedas. And as was mentioned here, he's an incarnation of Krishna. And he specifically comes to give the Bhagavat so that living beings can read it and then use their intelligence to come out of Maya. In the science of habits, I've been in a conversation with he's a neuroscientist and a psychologist. His name is Judson Brewer. He teaches at, I was going to say Carnegie Mellon, but that's David Creswell. Where? Columbia University? No, that's Dr. Sloman. Anyway, I can't remember which university he's from. You can look it up, Judson Brewer.
Brown University.
He's from Brown? Okay, go Brown. That's right. He's at the same university as Dr. Sloman. And in our conversations, I also read his book. And his specialty is habits. How habits form, psychologically, neurologically, how they form and how you might break a habit. He talks about first, there has to be some recognition that you have a habit. And then there's a stage at which you have to have disenchantment with the habit. He gives an example in his research about people who start smoking cigarettes, which are very hard to give up. And oftentimes they start when they're in their teens because they think it looks cool. And it's also an act of rebellion. But then, even after that reward, there has to be some reward to to starting a habit. One thinks, by doing this, I'm going to achieve this reward. And so when they start that, they have it later on, when they're just addicted to it, they might not be getting that reward. They're just stuck with the stinky habit of smoking cigarettes. So he says, for the intervention, there has to be a time of reckoning when one is self-observant that I'm not getting what I wanted out of this. That's something. And so that leads to a disenchantment. Then the next stages come by the power of replacing it with something else. So in general, people coming out of habits, it's not automatic. It's not just willpower that you just say all of a sudden, oh, I want to stop doing this. How many people have said that about smoking and then not been able to do it? Or with other addictive habits. So there's a process that one has to come out, and sometimes it takes a long time. And it's similarly, when we're conditioned by the modes of material nature, there's a process to come out of it. And I mentioned in the class today that there is an interim stage, when even though we understand we're disenchanted, and in fact that's specifically what the verse I quoted this morning says, Jata Shrada Makatasu Nirvina Sarvakarmasu Veda Dukatmakam Kamams. Veda means you know it. You know it's not good for you, and you know that this leads to misery. But Prityage Pyanishvara means you still don't have the power to do it, to overcome it. So sometimes or in most turnarounds, there's this process through which one has to go stage by stage to give it up. So it seems like it's a long time. Does that help?
Yes. I'm also wondering then, what role does karma play in the habits that we have and, the process of breaking those habits?
Mm-hmm. What role does karma have? Well, there's a way in which karma is defined as that which impels us to act in certain ways. For instance, I've acted in certain ways in previous lives, and now in this life I'm predisposed to act in certain ways. And even from the way I've been placed in my childhood and so from my upbringing, it's part of the karma, but it exists as the impetus within my mind to act in certain ways. The choices that I make, supposedly, are karma. Because of my exposure to, for instance, the mode of passion, when I'm asked to choose a certain kind of music, I say, oh, I like this, I like jazz. But that's a choice which has been influenced by the mode of passion. Hope I'm not offending any jazz fans, or ignorance even. And so there's that flow of thoughts that are coming through the mind, and we think we're making an independent choice. And so when one takes to devotional service, it's described aparabdam palam papam kutam picham palonmukam krame naiva priliante vishnu bhakti ratatmanam. There's a way in which all the forms of karma are destroyed by the process of devotional service. And the categories of karma are listed. Aprarabdha, palam papam. These are different stages of karma, just as there's stages in a seed. It's in a subtle form and then it grossifies as it begins to grow and then it bears fruit of its own and more seeds come out. All of those stages are obliterated. And in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the acharyas, including Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami, describe or are answering a question, which part of the karma is destroyed first, the old part or the new part? And they say it hardly matters because they give the example of making a garland of 1,000 lotus petals. And if you take a long needle and you push it through, you can say it went through each one, but practically speaking, goes through the whole thing at the same time. So what is it? What is the seeming influence that's still pushing us in a certain direction? This is, Prabhupada gave the example of a fan. When you turn it off, it still has some spin to it, even as it's slowing down. But even more subtly, or in the same vein, but explained in some more detail, in the purport to 10.14.8, Tatenu kampam susamikshamana munjana evatva kritam vipakam tridvapapurvya vidanam namaste jiveta yomukti pade sadaya bhak. This famous verse spoken by Lord Brahma is that one should always see everything, or it says one who always sees everything as the Lord's mercy, whatever comes, good or bad, as Krishna's reformation, his kind reformation. And in the purport, the commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which is cited there, he says, actually, a devotee doesn't have karma. But after one surrenders, one may have some residual desire, remnants, the last remnants of desire for enjoying the material world. Still, something's still lingering. Like if you burn a papadum, then you can just get rid of it quick before anybody comes home. And they come home 2 hours later and go, somebody burned a papadum. It's hard to get rid of. So similarly, there's a scent, there's a slight desire to still enjoy the material world. And Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, Krishna knows exactly what it is for every living entity. Therefore, he gives what appears to be karma, but actually it's customized suffering, specifically designed so that person will want to give up the last vestiges of desire. That's disenchantment. When it comes to that point, it's like, oh, forget it. This is the never again kind of thing. Krishna helps to coax the living being to give up those last vestiges, which appears to be karma. There's more evidence for it in the 6th canto of the Bhagwawatam. When Ajamil had chanted the holy name of the Lord, once was enough, Prabhupada said. And he had said it in complete helplessness and in innocence. He wasn't chanting to remove his karma. That's an offense. But he said it innocently. He said, Krishna. He said, Narayan, actually. And at that time, he was freed from karma. So then people asked, so why did he go on sinning? Because there he was, still living a sinful life. And again, the acharyas explain that a snake is dangerous, but when you take out all the fangs, it's no longer dangerous. You'll see that around Govardhan Hill. These kids, they'll keep a cobra in a basket. It doesn't have any fangs. Still a little scary though, because they'll come up to you and go, creep. A lot of people freak out and give him a few rupees. Get away from me. And so in a similar way, he says that the karma, the fangs have been taken away. For Ajamil, although it appeared the snake was biting, he had no fangs, so it had no real effect. So in a similar way, for the devotee, although it appears that he's still engaged in the material world and still getting results of karma, it's very different than from somebody who hasn't surrendered to the Lord. Hare Krishna. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or reflections before I move on to this all-important section? Yes, please go ahead.
I was just thinking that in the last paragraph that you just read, there was a line where Prabhupada says that the eternal relation between the Lord and the living being is transcendental. Otherwise, the Lord would not have taken the trouble to reclaim the conditioned souls. I find it really interesting because I was hearing a lecture by Mahatma Prabhu and he was saying that Sarva Dharma Trityaja verse, he thinks of it as like Krishna saying that I love you, will you love me too? So it's the same, like Prabhupada says that now it's living entities required to revive his natural love and affection for the Lord. And I find it really, it's like it's on us to do it. Krishna is already loving us. Sometimes we have this tendency that the Lord has stopped loving us, or the Lord is not taking care of us anymore. But it's like, no, he's there, but it's like our effort isn't with us.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. It's one of the psychological anomalies of conditioned soul. Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, Vitaraga Vaya Krodha, Manmaya Namupashrita, Bahavo Jnana Tapasa, Putama Bhavamagata. He says the conditioned souls have 3 psychological anomalies which they have to give up in order to achieve perfection. And he goes on to say, but don't worry, many people have overcome this by jnana tapasa, by the austerity of knowledge. And the 3 are raga, which is an irrational attachment to the temporary material world. The second one is bhaya, or fear of one's relationship with the Supreme. Included in that, quite noticeably, is a sense that God's against me. If there is a God, he's against me, because otherwise why would these things be happening to me? And one may, at one's lowest point, become angry with God. And at another level, there's a sense that although there is a God, he's personal and he loves all living beings, I'm just one of the living beings. And there's a section in the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, when Gopakumar goes back to Godhead. A poignant moment when he realizes, when he meets Krishna, that Krishna has personal love for him, not just all living beings, but for him he has specific affection when he comes forward from the forest and embraces him. And I've noticed, whenever I've read that section in public to devotees, and I look up, it's inevitable, there's tears in devotees' eyes. Because this is the existential angst that everyone has, including devotees. Think, yeah, but why is he still punishing me? He must not have personal love for me. But when they hear that section and they have a glimmer of the idea that Krishna personally cares for me, that he really does love me, then their heart just gushes, because that's what everybody's looking for and not getting in the material world. Therefore, they conclude erroneously that there must be no God, or let's just blank everything out, because unrequited love is so painful that let me just be a non-entity where there's no reciprocal exchange, and therefore I'll do away with that. Which is very much like if you go to the general hospital here with a little abscess on your finger and they say, well, listen, I'll tell you what we can do, because we're closing up anyway. We'll just amputate your hand. How's that? So no need to amputate, better to become healthy in exchange with the Lord and realize it. It's a nice point. Okay, I'm going to read a couple more verses. We're in the thick of it. These first 10 verses are vital to understanding the Bhagavatam. This is from Son of Drona Punished, from Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 7th chapter, and now we're on text number 6. Everybody ready?
Yes.
But only a little bit, right? Okay. Anarto Pashanam Saksha Bhakti Yogam Adoksaje Lokasya Janato Vidvamsh Chakre Satpata Sanghitam Anarta, things which are superfluous, Upashamam, mitigation. Saksha, directly. Bhakti Yogam, the linking process of devotional service. Adokshaje, unto the transcendence. Lokasya, of the general mass of men. Ajannataha, those who are unaware of. Vidvan, the supremely learned. Chakre, compiled. Satvata, in relation with the supreme truth. Samhitam, Vedic literature. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to supreme truth. Purport. Srila Vyasadeva saw the all-perfect personality of Godhead. This statement suggests that the complete unit of the personality of Godhead includes his parts and parcels also. He saw, therefore, his different energies, namely the internal energy, the marginal energy, and the external energy. He also saw his different plenary portions and parts of the plenary portions, namely his different incarnations also. And he specifically observed the unwanted miseries of the conditioned souls, who are bewildered by the external energy. And at last he saw the remedial measure for the conditioned souls, namely the process of devotional service. It is a great transcendental science and begins with the process of hearing and chanting the name, fame, glory, etc. of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Revival of the dormant affection of love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. When the Lord is fully satisfied by the sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endow him with his loving transcendental service. But even with the prescribed forms of hearing and chanting, there is at once mitigation of the superfluous and unwanted miseries of material existence. Such mitigation of material affection does not wait for development of transcendental knowledge. Rather, knowledge is dependent on devotional service for the ultimate realization of the supreme truth. Text number 7. Yasyam Vaishruyamanayam Krishne Paramapurushe Bhakti Utpadyate Pumsa Shokamoha Bhayapaha Yasyam. This Vedic literature, Vai, certainly, Shruyamanayam, simply by giving oral reception, Krishna, unto Lord Krishna, Parama, supreme, Purushe, unto the personality of Godhead, Bhakti, feelings of devotional service, Utpadyate, sprout up, Pumsa, of the living being, Shoka, lamentation, Moha, illusion, Poya, fear, Apaha, that which extinguishes. Translation. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. Srila Prabhupada's purport. There are various senses of which the ear is the most effective. This sense works even when a man is deep asleep. One can protect himself from the hands of an enemy while awake, but while asleep one is protected by the ear only. The importance of hearing is mentioned here in connection with attaining the highest perfection of life, namely getting free from 3 material pangs. Everyone is full of lamentation at every moment. He is after the mirage of illusory things, and he is always afraid of his supposed enemy. These are the primary symptoms of the material disease, and it is definitely suggested herein that simply by hearing the message of Srimad Bhagwawatam, one gets attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And as soon as this is effected, the symptoms of the material disease disappear. Srila Vyasadeva saw the all-perfect personality of Godhead, and in this statement, it is clearly confirmed that the all-perfect personality of Godhead is Sri Krishna. The ultimate result of devotional service is to develop genuine love for the Supreme Personality. Love is a word which is often used in relation with man and woman, and love is the only word that can be properly used to indicate the relation between Lord Krishna and the living entities. The living entities are mentioned as Prakriti in the Bhagavad Gita, and in Sanskrit, Prakriti is a feminine object. The Lord is always described as the Parama Purusha, or the supreme male personality. Thus, the affection between the Lord and the living entities is something like that between the male and the female. Therefore, the term love of Godhead is quite appropriate. Loving devotional service to the Lord begins with hearing about the Lord. There is no difference between the Lord and the subject matter heard about him. Loving devotional service to the Lord begins with hearing about the Lord. There is no difference between the Lord and the subject matter heard about him. The Lord is absolute in all respects, and thus there is no difference between him and the subject matter heard about him. Therefore, hearing about him means immediate contact with him by the process of vibration of the transcendental sound. And the transcendental sound is so effective that it acts at once by removing all material affections mentioned above. As mentioned before, a living entity develops a sort of complexity by material association, and the illusory engagement of the material body is accepted as an actual fact. Under such false complexity, the living beings are under categories of life. The living beings under different categories of life become illusioned in different ways. Even in the most developed stage of human life, the same illusion prevails in the form of many isms and divides the loving relation with the Lord and thereby divides the loving relationship between man and man. By hearing the subject matter of Srimad Bhagwatam, this false complexity of materialism is removed and real peace in society begins, which politicians aspire for so eagerly in so many political situations. The politicians want a peaceful situation between man and nation. But at the same time, because of too much attachment for material domination, there is illusion and fearfulness. Therefore, the politicians' peace conferences cannot bring about peace in society. It can only be done by hearing the subject matter described in the Srimad Bhagwatam about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The foolish politicians may go on holding peace and summit conferences for hundreds of years, but they will fail to achieve success. Until we reach the stage of reestablishing our lost relation with Krishna, the illusion of accepting the body as the self will prevail, and thus fearfulness will also prevail. As for the validity of Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are hundreds and thousands of evidences from revealed scriptures, and there are hundreds and thousands of evidences from personal experiences of devotees in various places like Vrindavan, Navadvip and Puri. Even in the Kaumudi dictionary, the symptoms of Krishna are given as the son of Yashoda and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parabrahman. The conclusion is that simply by hearing the Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagwatam, one can have direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and thereby one can attain the highest perfection of life by transcending worldly miseries, illusion, and fearfulness. These are practical tests for one who has actually given a submissive hearing to the readings of the Srimad Bhagwatam. Text number 8. Sasamhitam Bhagavatim Kritvanu Kramya Chatmajam. Of self-realization simply by, as the king of Bharatvarsha, he chastised the personality of Kali. According to the revealed scriptures and astrological calculation, the age of Kali is in its 5,000th year. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam was compiled not less than 5,000 years ago. Mahabharata was compiled before Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Puranas were compiled before Mahabharata. That is an estimation of the date of compilation of the different Vedic literatures. The synopsis of Srimad Bhagavatam was given before the detailed description under instruction of Narada. Srimad Bhagavatam is the science for following the path of Nivritti Marg. The path of Pravritti Marg was condemned by Narada. That path is the natural inclination for all conditioned souls. The theme of Srimad Bhagavatam is the cure of the materialistic disease of the human being, or stopping completely the pangs of material existence. I'll take some reflection or question. Yes? Online? Okay.
One more online question. How does one feel protected when externally one sees lack of protection?
How does one feel protection when one externally sees a lack of protection? Well, we see everything according to our own context. We all have a frame of reference to see what's happening in the world. And we may, for instance, one time when I was gardening in my backyard, I saw a little bird fly into the house. We didn't have screens on the windows because there's no bugs in California. And the weather's always perfect, by the way. case it's an advertisement. Bird flew into the kitchen. And I went in the house to free the bird. And he looked alarmed and flew into the next room. So I went in there, I started opening windows. He was alarmed by my activity and flew into the next room, next room, next room, next room. Went to every room in the house. Finally made it all the way back to the kitchen, which was the original room he entered into. He was perched up on the crown molding, and I opened the biggest window I could find. He looked at me with terror in his eyes, as if to say, "You tried to kill me, but I'm going to get away." And he swooped down and went out the window. And I sat down a little emotionally exhausted because I had this revelation that that's me. Krishna's trying to free me from the material world in many different ways, and I take it as his assault. And we may not understand what protection means when somebody's freedom is curtailed. For instance, in an old Western, you know what Westerns are? I used to tell that when I distributed Krishna book. I said, "Do you like Westerns?" And it didn't matter what they said. I said, "Yeah, I like Westerns." I said, "Great, this is an Eastern." And so, what was I saying anyway?
It was about a Western,
Oh yeah, you know, Western, guy comes into town, orders whiskey, gets all drunk, starts shooting his gun around town. So the sheriff comes in, "All right, Chester, come with me," you know, and he throws him in the jail. And Chester's in there snoring, wakes up in the morning, and sobered up. He goes, "What am I doing in here, Sheriff?" And he goes, "Chester, you did it again. You're shooting up the town. And we put you in jail for your own good, for the good of the citizens." And so, you know, at the time, Chester was complaining. It's like, "Oh, what are you putting me in jail for?" So the similar way, everything is arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead here. One may not interpret in that way, that one's being restricted or something's being taken away. But for those who have perspective of the ultimate, based on the ultimate goal of life, these movements by the Lord are taken. Tenu kampam sumikshamana. Oh, there's the Lord protecting me from myself, because I'm not trustworthy with sense objects or being overwhelmed by wealth. Therefore, he's so kind. Remember what Sudama said when he went to see Krishna in Dwarka. He had such a sweet interaction with him. Remember? And then his wife had urged him, "Just go there. You know, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead." And like, we could use a new roof, by the way. But on his way home, he had no idea that Krishna was going to endow him with great opulence and wealth. But he was thinking, Krishna's so kind that he didn't give me anything, because he knows that I would become attached. But when he got home, then he had this transformation of his home and his whole village and his place in it. And even then, we find out that Sudama was attached to penury. He was too attached to renunciation. So that's why he was in such a condition. So Krishna wanted to become detached from such renunciation. So he protected him. And so Krishna is ever helpful to us, but we have to see the context of how he's protecting us. If we think we can protect this body, then we're sadly mistaken, because by its nature, the material nature is constantly changing and it's in a state of decline. From the time you're born, Krishna says, you're counting your days till the final demise of the body. Despite the fact of longevity medicine nowadays. So, and it's been, people try to protect their bodies and say, well, I'll just live to 160. Well, even then, that's not very long. But good luck doing that. a lot of the great advocates for longevity drop dead suddenly here, there, and every place. Can't protect the body. And wealth is fickle. It's always changing hands. So you think, why didn't Krishna protect my wealth? But the main thing to protect is your consciousness. Krishna will always protect your consciousness by giving you an opportunity to remember him. So that's the most important protection. So we just have to understand what real protection means. Is there another thought, reflection, question that you'd like to pose? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to read 2 more verses. You had a question? No. I'm going to read 2 more verses because that gets us to the Atmarama verse. Shall we?
Yes.
Everyone still good?
Yes.
Okay, this is text number 9. Shaunaka uvacha. Savai nivriti nirataha. Sarvatro pekshako muni. Kasyava rahaktim etam. Atmarama samabhyasat. Sri Shaunaka asked Sutta Goswami. Sri Shukadeva Goswami was already on the path of self-realization, and thus he was pleased with his own self. So why did he take the trouble to undergo the study of such a vast literature? Purport: for the people in general, the highest perfection of life is to cease from material activities and be fixed on the path of self-realization. Those who take pleasure in sense enjoyment, or those who are fixed in material bodily welfare work, are called karmis. Out of thousands and millions of such karmis, one may become an Atmarama, or by self-realization. Atma means self, and Arama means to take pleasure. Everyone is searching after the highest pleasure, but the standard of pleasure of one may be different from the standard of another. Therefore, the standard of pleasure enjoyed by the karmis is different from that of the Atmaramas. The Atmaramas are completely indifferent to material enjoyment in every respect. Srila Shukadeva Goswami had already attained that stage, and still he was attracted to undergo the trouble of studying the great Bhagavatam literature. This means that Srimad Bhagwawatam is a postgraduate study even for the Atmaramas, who have surpassed all the studies of Vedic knowledge. How does that strike you? And we're getting to the key idea of the Srimad Bhagwatam, or one of the key ideas, which is the following verse. 10. Sutta uvacha. Atmaramaschamunayo. Nirgranta apyarukrame. Kurvantya haitukim bhaktim. Itam bhuta guno hari. Sutta Goswami said, all different varieties of Atmaramas, those who take pleasure in the Atma or spirit self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service unto the personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including liberated souls. Purport. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained this Atmarama shloka very vividly before his chief devotees, Srila Sanatana Goswami. He points out 11 factors in the shloka, namely 1, Atmarama, 2, Munaya, 3, Nirgranta, 4, Api, 5, Cha, 6, Rukrama, 7, Kurvanti, 8, Haitukim, 9, Bhaktim, 10, Itam, Bhutagana, and 11, Hari. According to the Vishva Prakash Sanskrit dictionary, there are 7 symptoms for the word Atma, which are as follows. 1, Brahman, the absolute truth. 2, body. 3, mind. 4, endeavor. 5, endurance. 6, intelligence. And 7, personal habits. The word munaya refers to 1, those who are thoughtful, 2, those who are grave and silent, 3, ascetics, 4, the persistent, 5, mendicants, 6, sages, and 7, saints. The word nigranta conveys these ideas. 1, one who is liberated from nescience. 2, one who has no connection with scriptural injunction, that is, who is freed from the obligation of the rules and regulations mentioned in the revealed scriptures like ethics, Vedas, philosophy, psychology, and metaphysics. In other words, the fools, illiterate, urchins, etc., who have no connection with regulative principles. 3, a capitalist, and also 4, one who is penniless. According to the Shabdakosh dictionary, the affix ni is used in the sense of 1, certainty, 2, counting. I hope you're paying attention because it'll be on the quiz. 3, building, and 4, forbiddance. And the word granta is used in the sense of wealth, thesis, vocabulary, etc. The word arukrama means the one whose activities are glorious. Krama means step. This word arukrama specifically indicates the Lord's incarnation as Vaman, who covered the whole universe by immeasurable steps. Lord Vishnu is powerful and his activities are so glorious that he has created the spiritual world by his internal potency and the material world by his external potency. By his all-pervading features, he is everywhere present as the supreme truth. And in his personal feature, he is always present in his transcendental abode of Goloka Vrindavan, where he displays his transcendental pastimes in all variegatedness. His activities cannot be compared to anyone else's, and therefore the word arukrama is just applicable to him only. According to the Sanskrit verbal arrangement, kurvanti refers to doing things for someone else. Therefore, it means that the Atmaramas render devotional service unto the Lord, not for personal interest, but for the pleasure of the Lord Arukrama. Hetu means causal. There are many causes for one's self-satisfaction, and they can be chiefly classified as material enjoyment, mystic powers, and liberation, which are generally desired by progressive persons. As far as material enjoyments are concerned, they are innumerable, and the materialists are eager to increase them more and more because they are under the illusory energy. There is no end to the list of material enjoyments, nor can anyone in the material universe have all of them. As far as the mystic powers are concerned, there are 8 in all, such as to become the minutest in form, to become weightless, to have anything one desires, to lord it over the material nature, to control other living beings, to throw earthly globes into outer space, etc. These mystic powers are mentioned in the Bhagwawatam. The forms of liberation are 5 in number. Therefore, unalloyed devotion means service to the Lord without desire for the above-mentioned personal benefits. And the powerful personality of Godhead Sri Krishna can be fully satisfied by such unalloyed devotees, free from all sorts of desires for personal benefit. Unalloyed devotional service of the Lord progresses in different stages. Practice of devotional service in the material field is of 81 different qualities, and above such activities is the transcendental practice of devotional service, which is one and is called sadhana bhakti. When unalloyed practice of sadhana bhakti is matured into transcendental love for the Lord, the transcendental loving service of the Lord begins gradually developing into 9 progressive stages of loving service under the headings of attachment, love, affection, feelings, affinity, adherence, following, ecstasy, and intense feelings of separation. The attachment of an inactive devotee develops up to the stage of transcendental love of God. Attachment of an active servitor develops up to the stage of adherence, and that for a friendly devotee develops up to the stage of following, and the same is also the case for the parental devotees. Devotees in conjugal love develop ecstasy up to the stage of intense feelings of separation. These are some of the features of unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. According to the Hari Bhakti Sudodaya, the import of the word itam bhuta is complete bliss. Transcendental bliss in the realization of impersonal Brahman becomes comparable to the scanty water contained in the pit made by a cow's hoof. It is nothing compared with the ocean of bliss of the vision of the personality of Godhead. The personal form of Lord Sri Krishna is so attractive that it comprehends all attraction, all bliss, and all tastes, rasas. These attractions are so strong that no one wants to exchange them for material enjoyment, mystic powers of liberation. Note the italics. In the first several cantos, Prabhu used italics for effect. There is no need of logical arguments in support of this statement. But out of one's own nature, one becomes attracted by the qualities of Lord Sri Krishna. We must know for certain that the qualities of the Lord have nothing to do with mundane qualities. All of them are full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. There are innumerable qualities of the Lord, and one is attracted by one quality while one is attracted by another. Great sages such as the four bachelor devotees, Sanaka, Sanatan, Sananda, and Sanat Kumara, were attracted by the fragrance of flowers and tulsi leaves, anointed with the pulp of sandalwood offered at the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, Shukadeva Goswami was attracted by the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Shukadeva Goswami was already situated in the liberated stage, yet he was attracted by the pastimes of the Lord. This proves that the quality of his pastimes has nothing to do with material affinity. Similarly, the young cowherd damsels were attracted by the bodily features of the Lord, and Rukmini was attracted by hearing about the glories of the Lord. Lord Krishna attracts even the mind of the goddess of fortune. He attracts in special cases the minds of all young girls. He attracts the minds of the elderly ladies by parental affection. He attracts the mind of the male in the humors of servitude and friendship. The word Hari, which word? Hari, conveys various meanings, but the chief import of the word is that he, the Lord, vanquishes everything inauspicious and takes away the mind of the devotee by awarding pure transcendental love. By remembering the Lord in acute distress, one can be free from all varieties of miseries and anxieties. Gradually, the Lord vanquishes all obstacles on the path of devotional service of a pure devotee, and the result of 9 devotional activities, such as hearing and chanting, becomes manifested. By his personal features and transcendental attributes, the Lord attracts all psychological activities of a pure devotee. Such is the attractive power of Lord Krishna. The attraction is so powerful that a pure devotee never hankers for any one of the 4 principles of religion. These are the attractive features of the transcendental attributes of the Lord. And adding to this the words api and cha, one can increase the imports unlimitedly. According to Sanskrit grammar, there are 7 synonyms for the word api. So by interpreting each and every word of this shloka, one can see unlimited numbers of transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna that attract the mind of a pure devotee. That's it. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining for this reading. And we thank Srila Prabhupada for rendering it into a readable form for everybody all over the world. Now all we have to do is give as much energy to reading them as he did to writing them. And to distributing them. Because the more we distribute to the world, to people, that is, in the world, the more there will be a transformation. It's inevitable that by the distribution of the Srimad Bhagwawatam all over the world, the lower modes of nature within the hearts of those who hear the Srimad Bhagwawatam will be vanquished, and we will have, in that way, by the distribution, pleased the great acharyas, headed by Srila Prabhupada. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Shri Gaurnitai, dear Shri Shri Gaurnitai, dear Shri Shri Gaurnitai, dear Shri Shri Radha Kirchor Gopinath, Shri Shri Radha Krishna, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. If you so desire, please instill in our hearts a desire to hear the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as given in the Srimad Bhagwawatam by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please say Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpadrushcha kripa sindhave vacha patitanam bhavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah ananta kodi vaishnavin ki jai. Sorry, Gaur Premanandi.